So welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and it's been a little while since we've seen the Grey Havens, so I figured we would be doing this replay today because it was sent to me some time ago, but as I've said previously, I don't really want to be doing the same maps in close succession to one another because it does feel a bit samey sometimes. But the Grey Havens is a very, very enjoyable map to behold nonetheless. It's one of WK's finest pieces of work, and hopefully we'll be seeing 0.97 sooner rather than later, so we can see a little bit more about a little bit more of his work and what he's been up to, because he's been doing stuff mostly pertaining to the campaign, I believe, and the settlements that will be involved with that. We have a 3v5 today, which was sent to me by, I believe, the Steward of Dale here, and it's not law friendly. I should clarify that right away because we have Lothlorien, Dol Amroth and Umbar on the defence. Lothlorien and Dol Amroth would certainly get along, I think, but Umbar doesn't really fit into that equation, and none of those factions are anywhere near the Grey Havens, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense for them to be defending it, but nonetheless, we're going to be seeing them. And I will be going through the armies more quickly as well, because I've said in one of the more recent replays as well, that I've said everything that I can say really about 0.96.1's army compositions and units and how they behave. You know, I've said everything really a dozen times over, and there isn't really anything else I can add to that conversation at this point. I desperately need 0.97 to come out so that I can be a little bit more informative once again, because like I said, I think I've repeated myself far too much already with regards to 0.96's mechanics, but we will be seeing, of course, 5 armies on the attack, starting with Y2K86 over here, who's going to be playing as Arthedain. He's got some Fornos Terrain defenders, or Orion defenders, which you don't see an awful lot of in 0.96. This is a unit which I haven't actually spoken about all that much with regards to 0.96, because very few people ever bring them, and that's because basic run-of-the-mill spears like this generally are not worth bringing over sort of standard infantry, because standard infantry will do a better job in melee, and spears for the most part are used either as fodder. Only really the high tier spears get treated seriously, essentially, as genuine units, because they don't really do as much damage to cavalry as they need to in order to be worth it. Excuse me, my voice is still on the way out, I think. But yeah, in 0.97 that will be remedied, but we will be seeing the armoured Arthedain spears. Evendim spears, of course, good militia unit. That's why you barely ever see the Fornos Terrain defenders, because the Evendim spearmen are so efficient, and they're cheaper, even if their shorts mean that they aren't quite as well armoured. Arthedain marksmen, so obviously again on the attack, always good to have a bit of range pressure, and Arthedain at the lower levels can certainly field a decent archer force for not as much money as some others may have to invest in order to achieve similar results. Dismounted Knights for Numinous, obviously very, very good multiple HP heavy infantry units. Numinous Gate Guards, very, very strong pikes for what they are. They also inspire nearby troops. Standard pikemen, standard men-at-arms, more defenders, more men-at-arms as well. Back there we can also see, yep, the Wardens of the North, one of the few AP archers in the game. Definitely something that Arthedain can leverage against their foes. And in a siege like this as well, if the enemy allows themselves to get bottled up, could be a pretty grim time for them. More archers, and then over here we also have some Arthedain men-at-arms and some Evendim spearmen. It might actually be I'm sure it's a 5v3. So we got the Orcs, the Misty Mountains, and Mordor. Well, we'll go through Mordor first of all, played by Blue Ranger. So Mordor on the attack. They've got some Troll Drummers, which are obviously going to keep their lower tier units in the fight for a little bit longer, which, considering Mordor's numbers, is always going to be a good thing. Orc fodder, cheap, but very, very poor in melee. Obviously the first one's free. Orc archers, in 0.96.1, cheap archers are very, very easy to use, very, very easy to get your money back from them. Moran on guard, you don't see them an awful lot because again they're spearmen, and generally speaking the orc fodder will do the job of the Moran on guard just fine as long as you properly support them to the point where they don't rout immediately. Moran on infantry, not a bad unit by any means, but I do feel as though some of the, well, 2 of the other orc factions in particular have got much better line infantry options. Mordor's strengths really lie elsewhere, but the Moran on infantry will still do the job of forming up a decent and fairly numerous front line. Orc maulers, cheap axemen, this is something which the orcs can leverage in a big way. Cheap axemen, generally speaking, I think all of them have got access to a cheap axe unit except for the Misty Mountains, but they can get their AP from elsewhere. Black Legion of Barad-dûr here, obviously again everyone's most controversial pick, I think, everyone's pick for the most controversial unit for Mordor, just because of the Great Shield Infantry's ability to push through lines. It could prove to be very, very needed here though, with the probably very elite nature of the defenders. Moran on halberds, bit of AP. The Nazgul, which are, excuse me, obviously very, very powerful. We've seen them used to good effect in the past, and the General is going to be part of this unit now, so the 9 have become the 10. We also have the Temple Guard, another AP archer unit on the attackers, the Olag High, the Sauron's Will, and the Orc Javelins. All being said, a pretty decent army. They've got their elites, which Mordor are very heavily dependent on, and their front line, which is obviously very numerous. We have Angmar TOTT, who's going to be playing as the Orcs of the Misty Mountains here, Heavy Goblin Spears, and this is where the Misty Mountains get their AP from. Well, there are cheaper options in the Misty Mountains roster, to be sure, but very, very efficient unit. Just the AP on top of the Spears, very good. They will be being brought more into line with the other Heavy Goblin units in 0.97, it's worth saying. But even so, still for now, very, very strong. Some Drake Broodlings back here, I believe. Yes, this is the rest of the Misty Mountains army. We have some Heavy Goblin Archers, Crossbowmen. Obviously crossbows for the Orcs can be very, very useful because the stopping power is very good, and generally their archers are not the most damaging, even if they can be used efficiently. Heavy Goblin Infantry, of all the line infantry units that the Orcs field, this is the weakest. They're weaker than Moran on infantry. Angmar Marauders and Uruk-hai Raiders are similar to the Heavy Goblin Infantry, but I think the Heavy Goblins are still worse than both of them, because I think the Angmar Marauders have got the edge on them when it comes to unit count, and the Uruk-hai Raiders might have that as well, but the Uruk-hai Raiders I think are better anyway. And then obviously Isengard have got the Uruk-hai Infantry on top of that. Azog is going to be in the Blackback Mountain Berserkers, so they will not be able to hide, but they are very, very deadly in melee. A little bit weak perhaps to arrow and range fire, but when they get into melee they're capable of doing damage to just about anything. Heavy Goblin Archers, and at the front over there, some Heavy Goblin Halberdiers as well, which are going to get ready to move up and support. So Misty Mountains are going to be supporting the advance of Mordor, and Cardland, played by new player 195. Cardland, of course, perhaps have more in common with the Orcs than they would like to admit because of their lower morale. Perhaps the Evil Men would be a better comparison start. Rudour, perhaps a better comparison for them because Rudour have some morale issues at their lower end as well. But Cardland, other than their morale, definitely have the look of a standard Western Kingdom of Men. The Greenwatch Garrison Spearmen are terrible in melee, but they're actually a pretty good tar pit. They can absorb quite a lot of arrow fire. Miniscarithlan Spearmen, Miniscarithlan Sharpshooters, obviously good hybrid unit, AP, infantry and melee as well as crossbows, Manatar Roman Guardians, Halberds, Dunedain Captains, obviously very, very good bodyguard swordsmen, and then back here we have the main army made up of Miniscarithlan swordsmen, bit of cavalry actually here as well in the Royal Court of House Thorondor, multiple HP lancers which include Gandalf the Grey, some Erin Vaughan axemen, so just some cheap axes, Merc war chiefs, and the Tharbad warhammers, which is where the general's going to be, and the ram way back there being pushed by civilians. And then the final army, another Orc faction, we have the Witch Realm of Angmar, played by M1 Breakout, so it's almost good versus evil. I guess you could spin it in such a way that Arnor has fallen, and both Cardland and Arthur Dane are joining the Orcs on the field today. M1 Breakout, Angmar is a very, very good faction for those who like to be extremely aggressive 100% of the time. A lot of brute strength tied up in Angmar, even more so I would say than Mordor, because overall their quality level tends to be a little bit higher, even if their elites tend to be not quite as strong as Mordor, like the Olag-hai are stronger than the Angmar Trolls. The Angmar don't really have an equivalent to the Nazgul. You could say the Witches, but the Witches are nowhere near as powerful in melee. The Witches can get torn up by arrows pretty quickly, whereas the Nazgul will not. The Witch Realm Scourge Raiders are here on the front. They're another unit which can get torn up by arrow fire pretty quickly, but they're pretty decent in melee. They do have the armour upgrade as well, so we'll see how well they can perform. Angmar Marauders, seldom seen actually, because most people just tend to go for the Guardians of Khan Doom en masse, which to be fair M1 has done with the armour upgrades as well. More Scourge Raiders, the Witch Realm Inquisitors, which is a good choice actually, considering that both Umbar and Dol Amroth are on the defence, and both of them can field some knights, potentially. Witch Realm Pikemen, Blackwatch Legion, so more Great Shield pushing units, and some Trolls of Angmar, although it looks as though two of the gates in the north and south are not going to be utilised by the attackers here. They're going to concentrate their force more, which, considering it's Angmar on this side, is a little bit more understandable perhaps. So now for the defenders, Ending Flame 0210 playing as Dol Amroth. Dol Amroth, I've said time and time again, in 0.96 a little bit underwhelming. That is certainly not the case in 0.97, where they've been given not only some buffs to their infantry, but also some significant additions to their cavalry force, which makes them a match for anyone really in terms of their cavalry. Talon Knights, multiple HP, similar to the Dismounted Knights of Numinous, only not quite as strong. Some Ethelond Men-at-Arms, some Doran Ernil Pikemen with the armour upgrade, and some Tirithea Wardens, and some Ethelond Halberdiers, so a lot of unit variety guarding that gate against Angmar. Got some archers in the back as well, some Tirithea Marksmen, some Belfalas Marines to give some Jav support. We have Dollar Elf, who's going to be playing as the Elves, Lothlorien. The Lothlorien Blade's going to be here, obviously very, very effective. The Lothlorien Blades actually won't be... They will technically be in Lothlorien, but they will be being made a similar unit to the Eldar Makar or the Harlanded infantry, something like that. They won't be on the same sort of level as the Imladris Guardians anymore, but Lothlorien, they really actually do miss in 0.96, I think. Just a basic swordsman, because you only really have one unit which you can mass up, you know, effectively with the amount of money that the elves often cost, and that's the Sylvan Spears, and they have the spear malice against other infantry. So I do actually think that Lothlorien will benefit from actually having these guys made cheaper, and not quite as good, obviously, because you still have the Lothlorien axes, which will still fulfill the function of being an infantry unit on the same sort of level as the Imladris Guardians anyway. So it gives Lothlorien a bit more variety. The Mighty Haven Guard, of course, again, one of the strongest heavy swordsmen in the game, alongside the Noldorin Blade Masters and Temple Executioners. More Belfast Marines, an Elven Catapult, some Tirithea Marksmen, and then over here, similar story, Halberdiers, Wardens, Pikemen, Men-at-Arms, and Talon Knights. Interesting layout for those units. We've got some Sindar Archers. Again, Lothlorien, I'm sure that you saw in the last replay, for those of you that are interested, Lothlorien's new skirmishers in the upcoming patch will make them a much different proposition to face than they are at the moment. At the moment, they're just sort of a bargain bin Imladris, in my opinion, in terms of how they play. Imladris are just better at what they do. Lothlorien do have a couple of tools, like the Maethir Lasgallan as javelins, and the Warriors as the two-handed axemen that Imladris do not, but overall Imladris are still much stronger, in my opinion. Whereas in the upcoming patch, when their archers get made stronger, Lothlorien will have the ability to sort of stand themselves out from the crowd a bit. Lothlorien archers here, Lothlorien swordmasters over there, blades, and over here we'll be getting into the Umbar units, crossbow corsairs. We've got some Nadu Bawib. Down here, some Corsair Savages, Numenorian Shield Guard getting ready to hold the line with the Corsair Savages and the Naru and Naaru Sentinels. Corsair Blackguards also over here. We also have some more Blackguards, more Blades, and also Castamir's Legion, of course, with Corsair Fencers, more Sentinels, more Fencers, more Legion. So you can see already the fact that the defenders have been able to sort of really bulk up on their stronger units. Lots of Legion, you know, the fact there are 2 Naru and Naaru Sentinels should clue you in on that. More Lothlorien archers, of course. All of these Elven archers are going to be very, very effective in melee as well. Maybe not so the Sylvan Rangers and the Ethel Tirith, but the Sylvan Rangers, of course, exceptional damage dealers. All Rangers are when it comes to those blob fights which sieges often produce. And then back here, some Galatharan Nobles, another unit of Haven Guard, as well as some Karas Galadhon's Guardians, some Castamir's Legion as well, and a second unit of Karas Galadhon's Guardians. So very, very strong defensive armies, as you would expect, because they are outnumbered by 2 entire armies, and the attacking armies are not exactly fodder either, but we will begin. I don't think there's going to be much need for a cut here, because I think the attackers are just going to move right on in. Indeed, Mordor are. To be fair, a lot of the attacking armies tend to be split between about 3/4 of them are sort of a basic army, and then the rest of it is going to be elites, but for the defenders, lots and lots of quality, which I'm glad to see. There's obviously a few low tiers, especially from Umbar as well, like Corsair Savages, but that AP will actually be useful against a lot of the attackers here. Mordor, certainly no exception to that. Cardland are actually peeling off a little bit. Interesting to see. Perhaps they're going to allow the Misty Mountains to be the one that takes point. You can see there that the Catapult already firing, and they're going to try and destroy the Goblin Catapult here, and they did, but that brave Goblin there laid down his life and actually blocked the shot, I think, so that was heading right for the siege engine itself. Looks as though the Catapult is going to try and get out of range of that defensive Catapult and move over here instead, potentially, to support Mordor, and the Orc fodder is already rolling the engines of war towards the gates of the Grey Havens. The Corsair Savages are waiting, ready to receive the attackers. Now, they do have the armour upgrade. To be fair, it's not the most efficient use of them, but they should still be able to easily beat the Orc fodder as they single file down onto the wall. And anything that follows them in is probably going to have the armour of the Morannon infantry as well, so, I mean, perhaps it is the best front line, because after all, the Corsair Savages, of all of the defensive units, are probably the ones that the defenders care least about losing. Certainly a very cheap axeman, around the 400-500 florin range. Mordor definitely the ones being aggressive here, as well as Angmar moving into position. Of course, Angmar, not too surprising that they're the ones also getting into a position where they will attack right away. Of all the as I get interrupted. The Ram is going to knock down this gate, but of all of the attacking factions, the one that would probably be the most cautious about moving forward would probably be Cardland, just because their morale, unlike the Orcs, who their numbers can keep their morale together for actually a fairly decent amount of time as long as you come forward in bulk. Cardland, a little bit less so. Cardland's morale is definitely the sticking point of their faction as a whole. There goes the gate. The Orc fodder getting ready to move in. Elsewhere in the settlement, Cardland are going to be moving forward now. Actually, they went back to actually pick up their siege towers, which I'm not quite sure why they weren't equipped immediately anyway. But there we go. So the gate is down, the siege tower is in position. It doesn't actually look as though Mordor are going to move forward just yet, interestingly enough. Again, Mordor's strength really is bound up in their elites. Ah, there we go. I thought that was flames for a second then, but no, it's the still bugged watchtower that is that is here in the Grey Havens. And the Corsair Savage is actually getting off the wall now, and instead the Lothlorien Blades will be the ones to potentially take the responsibility of getting up there. Which actually I would agree with, because Orc fodder are not even going to scratch Lothlorien Blades. It's going to be a real bloodbath if Orc fodder goes up there. Another unit of fodder is going to be pushing the other siege tower into position. Cardland doing the same with some spearmen, both militia and the Minas Tirith variant. As Angmar also holding back, so maybe I should have made a cut here, because it looks as though the attacks have been far more cautious than I thought they were going to be. Having said that, the defenders need to be a little bit more careful than they're being. These Corsair Blackguards in full range of those Orc archers, they need to get out of there. Certainly the Corsair Blackguards not the best at taking arrow fire, and their javelins are lethal as well, so you definitely want to preserve their lives if you can. Abrazanim Nadubawi starting to return fire onto the Orc archers, but the Mordor player won't mind that one bit. Orc archers are very, very cheap. Abrazanim Nadubawi, to be fair, do have a little bit of utility to them. The fact that they can double as decent infantry as well. But even so, they don't really want to be using their arrows on units as cheap as the Orc archers, really. This is exactly the sort of thing that the Orc archers are built to do. Just stand there and die, getting what kills they can with their low tier arrows. It looks as though the Corsair Savages are going to get back onto the walls now as the Orc fodder prepares to get back into position, but once again the Corsair Savages retaking their position on the wall. Let's see what's going on down here. So Cardland are still moving into position. A huge glut of the Cardland spears getting into place, but the Dole Amroth infantry on the other side is of good quality. The Talon Knights in particular are something which will take a concerted effort to dislodge. Some Gwathlo trackers, the Ghetto Rangers, Rangers that don't have body piercing essentially, because they have all the weaknesses of Rangers, in that they're really poor in a skirmish fight because of their very low armour. But they can hide at least, which does give them a bit of utility. But don't make the mistake of thinking that they are genuine Rangers. They do not have the body piercing. Angmar's still just waiting, so the attackers are just biding their time, waiting for the opportune moment to strike, which might be getting closer now that the bulk of the Mordor army seems to be moving forwards. I think what we will do is we'll go into ×2 speed here while the attackers gather their courage for the assault. Dol Amroth setting up a nice position here on the other side of the gate, made up of spears and pikes. It's quite rare actually that you see a Cardland army so devoid of pikes. I mean, this wall here is completely clear, and Cardland are not going to go up there. I mean, they're going to miss the opportunity to mount the walls if they don't. I mean, this is a good opportunity to get up on the walls and make sure that you aren't just going single file into an elite unit like Talon Knights. But it looks as though they're content to actually just sit there and wait for the time being, which surprises me. Gwathlo trackers are starting to fire, but unlike on the other side, where the Orc archers are fairly numerous, the Gwathlo trackers, this is not really the case for. They don't have the same numbers to their units as a unit of standard Orc archers, and like I said, they are poor at best in a skirmish fight. The Minas Tirith sharpshooters are getting into position, however, and also Misty Mountains are sending over some support in the shape of the Snaga skirmishers. Like I was saying, it's rare that you see a Cardland army so devoid of their pikes, which in this case is understandable. Like an offensive siege, the Cardland pikes are not exactly well known for being heavy duty and heavily armoured. Meanwhile, these Orc javelins were trying to get into position to potentially get some damage done on these elite Umbar troops that are waiting for them, but they immediately just started getting shot. And I feel as though the Mordor player at some point is just going to have to swallow his pride and get in there, because he's not going to be able to do a huge amount of damage, to be frank, with these Orc archers. He might be able to waste some ammunition, but that's a very minor victory to achieve. You can see here that he does have the support of the Misty Mountains as well. Like, my Here we go, Angmar moving in. But as I was saying, my sympathy for attackers that take their time too much when they have an advantage by 2 armies is relatively low. Like, you have a big advantage. Like, you can get away with being a little bit reckless and making it more interesting. So I do hope that when the battle gets underway a little bit more genuinely, the attackers will follow through on an assault. And it looks as though Angmar are going to be the ones to get into place first of all, as the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders. Good lord, these announcers. Good old Medieval 2 and its terrible voice acting. But the Witch Realm Scourge Raiders are now up on the walls, facing off against the upgraded MITHLOND Men-at-Arms, and this is a fight that, in terms of melee power, I might back the Scourge Raiders when they're upgraded like this. Just because the MITHLOND Men-at-Arms, they're not really fighting with support, which is what line infantry will usually do. And the Scourge Raiders, they have a decent amount of melee skill. They have that, the axe and sword combination. They may look a little bit natty, but their main weakness is against arrow fire, which they're not being hit by any sort of arrow fire at the moment. And you can see here that the MITHLOND Men-at-Arms are taking losses as the Scourge Raiders pour up onto the walls. On the other side, however, the Scourge Raiders have got a much harsher task upon them because they're facing off against the Talon Knights. The Talon Knights are not being backed up, however, and the Talon Knights' lower unit count could hurt them. They should still beat a single unit of Scourge Raiders, even though it says victory seems certain. I shouldn't imagine that that will last for too long. Another gate goes down. But yeah, I would fully expect the Talon Knights to win that, but they do need a bit of support, and they may very well get it here as the Belfast Marines get into position. The Javelins being thrown right into the broadside of the Scourge Raiders. You can see immediately they take a lot of damage, immediately becoming shaken. And now Cardin are going to be getting up onto the walls. You can see the Miniscarithman Spearmen. Decent armour values on these lads. However, that is also true for the Athlon Men-at-Arms, and the Men-at-Arms do not have to deal with that Spear Malice, so once again I would back the Dole Lambert infantry to win this fight. Perhaps a little bit of skirmish support would not go amiss, however. Because over here, the same thing is happening as this on this side. Actually, it's Miniscarithman Swordsmen, although once again they're going to have to face off against Talon Knights, which there is a quality discrepancy there, but the numbers could ultimately end up working out in favour of the attackers over a longer period of time. Meanwhile, over here, the attack is now getting underway on all fronts, which I'm glad to see. Blue Rangers, Mordor Army, the Orc Fodder actually cleared a space, but the problem they will have is they are being shot. Their morale is going to fall apart pretty quickly. Corsair Savages, however, again, this is not the most efficient fight for them. Even Orc Fodder will be able to do damage to a unit that is so fragile, especially when they're unsupported like this. Over on this side, it's a very similar story, although it looks as though the Orc Maulers are about to join in on the action over here. You can see here the Corsair Savages still just holding the line. But yeah, I would imagine the Orc Fodder is going to break pretty quickly, but with the support of the Orc Maulers, who knows? Perhaps the Lothlorien Blades should think about getting up there. I really need to turn those announcers off, don't I? Because fucking hell does he like the sound of his own voice. So here are the Corsair Fencers again, using an elite but pretty small unit to guard the walls. This should have a good effect early on when they're sort of stabbing units that are getting just down off the walls in single file, but as soon as the attackers have managed to sort of secure a position for themselves, the lower unit count may actually hurt the defenders more than it helps them. But Arthedain are now joining in on the action as well, getting ready to attack with some Arthedain Men-at-Arms. Let's go and see what's happening down here on this side of things. The Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, it does look as though they have been hit by some sort of archery. There are those Tirithea marksmen up on the hill after all, and now the Athlon Men-at-Arms might have enough to pull this over the line. The Scourge Raiders are also shaken, and you can see over here what's left of these Scourge Raiders after they got hit by javelins are now being mopped up by what's left of the Talon Knights, to be fair. And this is one of those times where I say I'm not really a huge fan of the Talon Knights. I always feel as though they're a little bit underwhelming. Much like the same unit model on horseback, the Knights of the Silver Swan, I always feel like they don't quite offer enough for what they really are. But that is a little bit different in 0.97, I must say. So I had a little bit of a crash there, which means we won't actually be able to have a look at this section of the field that I'm highlighting on the mini-map up there, where Cardin and the Misty Mountains are pushing through, because the game absolutely shits itself when Rangers are hitting a big blob, which is exactly what was happening. The game immediately crashed, so there's there's nothing I can do about that. Like, this game is too old and its bones are too creaky for me to actually watch that, especially with the graphical overhaul mods that I've got on. It's just not going to happen. You can see that already, actually, the frames are starting to drop once again, so we're going to be having to limit ourselves essentially to this northern edge of the battlefield. In fact, the frame rate is, oof, my word. Ah, the joys of a game from 2006. Anyway, over here as well, like, I would say the Corsair fencers, they would obviously individually have a pretty substantial advantage over the Arthedain men-at-arms, and the men-at-arms are also shaken for having to fight such an elite foe, in addition to taking some damage from some archers down there, I think. But regardless, Arthedain should, if they manage to keep the pressure up, be able to clear a spot on the wall, because there simply isn't enough Corsair fencers, nor are there any reinforcements nearby, I think, to actually make the most of that. I mean, there are Lothlorien blades and blackguards here ready to reinforce the line, but I don't know, I mean, yeah, those Arthedain men-at-arms are also shaken. So with my back to the engagement, which causes an immediate crash, we're going to see what Mordor are up to, which is, oh my god, there are Rangers over here. I've made a terrible mistake. Or is it Crossbow Corsairs? Nope, it's Castamir's Rangers. But we're going to see them from afar. Yeah, we can't watch that. It pains me not to be able to watch it, but the game will just crash immediately if I go over there and stay there for too long. But Mordor are single filing into those Castamir's Rangers, and they are getting absolutely butchered as a result. We'll have a look at the aftermath, but I cannot... It annoys me as much as I'm sure it will annoy other people. I'm sure that the video will get downvoted just as a result of that, but there's nothing I can do to make that watchable. I've tried, believe me. Evendim archers are here, trying to shoot at what they can, but they don't really have a particularly good shot. But Arthedain are stacking more and more men up on this wall, but mostly it's spears. And even still, you know, with that support from those range units, that sounded like crossbow bolts as well. So that's probably crossbow Corsairs doing a bit of damage in there. We can also see javelins are being thrown by the Corsair blackguards, getting a lot of damage done there to the initial Arthedain assault. So far, so good from that perspective. Meanwhile, we're going to go over here and try to avoid the Cardland Misty Mountains engagement, which caused the most hideous of crashes last time. You can see over here that the Witch-Realm Scourge Raiders, they are now just being finished off. I mean, to be fair, there's not a lot of MITHLOND men-at-arms left, so they have managed to fight each other basically to a standstill. But now that the Lothlorien blades are on hand, that's where the Witch-Realm Scourge Raiders are going to fall apart. It looks as though Angmar are going to send in another wave power, and it looks as though the entirety of their army is also coming forward, so that's the Scourge Raiders there. The Talon Knights stand victorious, but they won't be able to withstand another assault, I don't think. There simply isn't enough of them left. Are the Rangers still over here? It does not appear... Nope, yeah, there are Sylvan Rangers and Castamir's Rangers over here now. And it looks as though Mordor's army has been stopped dead in its tracks as a result of those Rangers, because you can see there the Umbar front line is still intact, the spears and pikes are still there, the Sylvan Rangers are going to march away. Now this is where it crashed last time, which is why I'm a little bit reluctant to head in here, but we will gingerly move in, because there aren't any Rangers on station, I think, to cause a crash, unless Dol Amroth have got their Nimrodels over here somewhere. We do have the Meniskirithlan Spearmen fighting hard on the walls, as well as the Heavy Goblin Infantry, but they are being held in place so far by the Athlon Men-at-Arms, and with all of that range fire coming in, that actually is the telltale blood spray of a Ranger unit, and it is the Nimrodel Rangers. So that would be what caused the crash last time. You can see here also the Cardland front line is just collapsing, the morale is just not good enough. And the infantry which is getting up on the walls is being repelled almost immediately. What is this, however? We do actually have a unit which is... Well, it's a routing unit which is routing through the settlement, but the Lothlorien Swordmasters are on the way over to help against Arthedain. As so far, the defenders have managed to hold the outer walls resolutely. The Corsair Blackguards, now out of ammunition I assume, are going to join the defence on the walls, and now caught between them and the Lothlorien Blades, the remainder of the Arthedain infantry is just going to get slaughtered. This is where the elite nature of the defending armies is going to really pay dividends. I will also say that while we haven't been able to get up close and personal with it, the combination of those Castamir's Rangers and Sylvan Rangers laying waste to that Mordor assault also helped out a great deal. The Castamir's Legion here, also victory seems certain, in conjunction with the Narunaaru Sentinels catching the Evendim Spears and the Fornos Terrain Defenders between them. Also, with range support, Angmar are going to be able to hold the line quite comfortably, and with that range support, they should probably target down the Innuminous Gate Guards, because they're not as strong individually as the Naru and Aru Sentinels, but they will still last for a decent amount of time, if they can get their pikes down, get themselves into a decent formation. See up here, the Castamir's Legion has joined what's left of the Corsair Fencers now in defence of the walls, and they will very, very easily be able to throw off a very depleted unit of Ebendim Spearmen. So good for them. Meanwhile, all of this archer support just in behind is what's causing this. Not really able to gain any sort of foothold on the walls. Snaga skirmishers trying to shoot in there. You can see, just look at the damage those rangers caused. The Olag High are in here as well, so the Olag High were killed off pretty quickly. Then honestly, Angmar's front line has still got a decent amount of manpower to it. You can see the Black Legion of Barad-dûr were obviously trying to push through the lines, and they immediately got caught by the rangers. The Snaga skirmishers and the Temple Guard are now being forced back, and Mordor's army is still here, especially with a bit of Misty Mountains support, but this is all that remains really. That first wave constituted a lot of Mordor's strength, and it was soundly defeated. Meanwhile, as we have a look from on high, what are the Nimrodel Rangers doing? They're shooting, so I'm loath to zoom in. But we will. The Elven Catapult is here. There are still fights going on up on the walls, but a combination of the Marines and the Athlon Men-at-Arms are pinning them in place, and that is almost exclusively, I imagine, where the Nimrodel Rangers have been shooting, because it's such a tempting blob to go after. Meanwhile, the second wave of the Angmar assault is coming forward, and now the Blackwatch Legion are here. They're being targeted by the Javelins. The Blackwatch Legion, the Witchrealm Scourge Raiders, Tirithea Wardens are trying to hold them back. The Guardians of Khan Doom are in there. Standard archers are firing in, as well as those Javelins though, so I'd be interested to see how far Angmar can make it here. They could make it through, but even if they do, this is going to take its toll. They're going to send in the Trolls of Angmar as well to try and consolidate their gains. Meanwhile, up here you can see the Angmar Marauders have cleared out a space for themselves on the wall, but the Lothlorien Blades are so much stronger than Angmar Marauders. It's going to be an easy task, I think, to break them. The Blackwatch Legion pushing through. The Maitha Ilaz Gullen, however, are going to give them a face full of Javelin as soon as they get down here. Swordmasters are on the way from Lothlorien as well. Having a look here on the front line, yeah, the Dol Amroth front line has, of course, been split in half by the committal of the Blackwatch Legion, but taken a lot of damage from doing this, and it's not as if there aren't reinforcements on the way to stop this advance either. Lothlorien Swordmasters are here. The more they push through, the more they put themselves at risk of just getting slaughtered by the Nimrodel Rangers, which are over here. There's actually 2 units of Rangers, which is almost certainly why my game crashed last time. Guardians of Khan Doom there as well. They're trying to push their way through, but again, I just don't feel as though Angmar is following through enough to make this attack stick. Like, they've managed to push through the front line, yes, but now they're just going to get shot. More reinforcements from Lothlorien are on their way over here. I don't think this attack is going to stick. Even with the Trolls there, they may well do a lot of damage to these Dol Amroth infantry units on the front line. But they're going to pay so dearly for it. Angmar Marauders getting up on this wall. There are enough of them there where they should actually be able to overwhelm the Talon Knights, so now if they push forward with all of this, maybe they can make this stick. Half of the Umbar forces have been defeated, but you can see over here that Arthedain are really having a tough time making any sort of progress. All of these Umbar elites being joined by not-so-Umbar elites as well, or not-so-elite Umbar forces. Crossbow Corsairs are now being committed to melee, but Arthedain are just caught here, they're bottled up. There's actually some Grey Company over here as well. Interesting. Hobbit Slingers getting into position, the Arthedain Marksmen, Men-at-Arms. I don't know where the Wardens of the North have gone. Are they on the front line? I mean, the Dismounted Knights of Illuminus are. I don't think the Wardens of the North are, though. We would have seen their general... I say that, they're here. Alongside the Dunedain Rangers, they have managed to secure a position for themselves up on the wall as well. Do they have any ammunition, though? The Wardens of the North and the Rangers put together could do serious damage to this Lothlorien Umbar front line, but they're also being shot almost immediately.
They have lost half their men.
Crossbow Corsairs and Lothlorien archers shooting them, and the Crossbow Corsairs in particular are going to be a problem, because the stopping power on crossbows when they have a perfect shot like this, even the multiple HP nature of Wardens of the North is not going to help them, nor is their good armour values. And then the standard archers are going to be able to do a number on the Dunedain Rangers as well. Meanwhile, heading back over to here. How are things going for Mordor in the Misty Mountains?
At the walls. Repel the attackers. Give them steel.
A huge blob of Angmar forces moving forward there.
Only intervention by the Almighty Lord or a military genius can bring us victory from this disgrace.
I'm not sure I share the announcer's appraisal of the situation here. I think the defenders have done very well so far, particularly on this gate over here, just because of the amount of damage they did to Mordor so quickly. They're now still pushing forward as well. I think they are in a little bit of danger of being overwhelmed though. This next assault, it doesn't look like they have a lot of infantry in reserve over here. They've got some Lothlorien archers, which not bad in melee, but I think they're going to need a little bit more. Some spears. There's some blades guarding this doorway as well, or doorway. Siege tower up onto the wall. As Angmar trying to sort of plug up this front line, the heavy goblin halberds and spears are trying to force their way through. Another assault from this wall, orc javelins and heavy goblin infantry. Very depleted Lothlorien blades, but it is only heavy goblin infantry they're having to face, so maybe they'll be alright. Meanwhile down here, Nimrodel Rangers are idle. What's going on there? Royal Court of House Thorondor thinking about charging in perhaps? I'm not sure whether I would take that course of action. There isn't really any good targets they can go after. The archers are behind stakes, the infantry are behind halberds and pikes. Meanwhile, Sindar archers are now adding their own arrows to the mix, although the Nimrodel Rangers are now idle. And yet it does look as though this Angmar assault is starting to fizzle out. There are javelins also being launched in their goblin trackers, running for the hills. Tirithea marksmen that are out of ammunition being added to melee. Those javelins from the Maith Ilazgal, and the trolls are still alive, to give them their due. Trolls of Angmar are very resilient, but even they've taken a lot of losses. Angmar are going to be thrown off though, I think. I mean, Angmar do have their Blackwatch Legion, they still have their Witch Realm Inquisitors, but Witch Realm Inquisitors I don't think are the answer here, because the defenders have got what it takes to stop them. They also do have the Haven Knights, which I missed actually in the army compositions. The Haven Knights will be able to match them at least 1-to-1, and within the settlement, the defenders should have the support nearby to tilt that fight more heavily in their favour, you would imagine. Taking a few hits there, I should say, from the Sindar archers.
The enemy are badly blooded. They have lost half their men.
Heavy Goblin halberds moving up onto the walls now, but they're going to immediately be met by the Talon Knights. Over here, meanwhile, the Erin Vaughn Axemen mounting the walls. Ultimately, their very low defensive skill and next to no armour is going to be a real problem for them here as they go into the meat grinder against the Belfalas Marines and what's left of those men-at-arms. That is a bit of unfortunate play there from... I mean, I suppose he did do a lot of damage to those Talon Knights. He did kill off that entire unit essentially, but he also killed a chunk of his own halberds. He is going to be able to open a hole in the wall though, so a worthwhile sacrifice to kill those Talon Knights. The ultimate gambit. You should always be prepared for Orc players to throw away their men, because you know, they do have a lot of disposable manpower in their armies, generally speaking. The Sylvan Rangers are over here now, as Mordor and the Misty Mountains continue to try and make something happen over here, but I mean, are those the Temple Guard? I think they are. They may very well have used up their ammunition, but I mean, they should be able to win this fight, to be fair, the Temple Guard. It's mostly Lothlorien spears at this point, so the malice will apply. Well, there's only 24 of them, though. I don't know. Nah, there's too many spears there. The defenders will still be just fine with that. The Misty Mountains try and use their spears to push through once again. I feel as though they're taking huge losses on this gate over here, both Mordor and the Misty Mountains. Heavy Goblin spears funneling into these Lothlorien blades, who are all too happy to kill them off one by one. Now let's head over to here. The northernmost gate. Are Arthedain able to make more progress over here yet? I mean, it does look as though they have pushed back a little bit more. But I can't help but notice that most of the units on this front line are archers that are out of ammunition. To be fair, that is true here as well. Nadu Bawi, as well as Corsair Blackguards and Crossbow Corsairs, but it looks as though Arthedain have also really been through the ringer here on the northern gate. Over here, Lothlorien Blades still holding the line. Dealing with the Arthedain men-at-arms, more reinforcements are on the way. Again, it's Avendim archers, but at this point, the attacks are having to rely on the fact that ultimately their numbers are going to be what needs to tilt them over the line. The Warns of the North going toe-to-toe with the Lothlorien archers. You expect the Warns of the North to win that, even with the damage they've taken up to now.
Only half the enemy force remains.
don't really have any reinforcements left over. Well, they do have some Lothlorien archers. And again, good in melee. As with all heavy elven archers, can certainly hold their own. The Sylvan Rangers are firing. Not sure what at. They're firing right up into the air, so the Ranger's not going to be quite as effective this time around, but that's a lot of heavy Goblin Halberds that are routing. Those heavy Goblin Spears are not eager to charge in. The Nazgul have taken a single solitary loss to their manpower. But still, Umbar holding this gate. And Mordor's army has been ground into the dirt for the most part. They only have a couple of units remaining. Drake Broodlings and Blackback Berserkers ready to make their move, as and when needed. Heading over here, though. Cardland should still have a decent amount left in the tank, you would imagine. And with that new gap that's been opened up in the walls, some Lothlorien archers in close proximity trying to shoot into the rear, I think, of the spearmen. And so we have... Well, we had a very brief duel between the Haven Knights and the Witch Realm Inquisitors, but you can see immediately what must have been the cause of the Witch King's retinue being killed off so quickly, the Witch King himself dying as well. Maether-Ilaz-Galan in close proximity. Javelins and spearmen. Very, very good answer to cavalry, and in conjunction with the Haven Knights, that's bad news even for the mighty Witch Realm Inquisitors. Forward come the Sindar Archers. Now, that's a large amount of hostile troops, however, on the other side. Cardland and the Misty Mountains are probably the most well-situated army at this point, but the Haven Knights are sort of sleepwalking in after their fine victory, maybe getting a little bit overconfident, and they just walked into melee with the Minisker Rithlin Spearmen. They're in and amongst the stakes as well, so in their haste to charge away, I mean, fortunately for them, they didn't get skewered by the stakes, but they need to get out of there. They are melee cav, so their charge is not great, but it is still going to be very, very useful nonetheless. Tirithea marksmen guarding the gate, so for the most part, Angmar have actually been the first attacking army to mostly fall. Lothlorien still has some troops in there dealing with what's left of the Witch Realm pikemen, but the Sindar archers, the Maether-Ilaz-Galan that were committed over here, I can't imagine they're going to last too much longer because there simply is too many attacking forces trying to push their way through. The Royal Court of House Thorondor charging in. Not the best of charges, but the Nimrodel Rangers are also not likely to do a lot of damage in return to such a durable unit of Lancers. There's also some Sylvan Rangers charging into the Merc War Chiefs. Cardland overextending a little bit.
Or a military genius can bring us victory from this disgrace.
I don't know, I mean, the defenders are running out of manpower, as you would expect in a situation like this. But they've done a lot of damage to the attackers. More to the point, the defenders have still got a lot of elites in that town centre. The Temple Guard and the Nazgul, I can see one of the Nazgul floating in midair there. I think trying to deal with what's left of the Lothlorien Blades over on this choke point here. So, as with most fights on the Grey Havens, I think we're going to see a fight of two halves. One here on the outer walls, and then the final stand at the town centre. I would imagine the defenders are going to try and save what they can. Arthedain here still having some issues pushing through, but they should make it eventually. I think their numbers are going to tell, as both Lothlorien and Umbar had to fight on other fronts as well, whereas Arthedain could of course focus their efforts. And even though they have also had themselves bloodied substantially, they will still be able to move in, and they should still have the Grey Company for the late game as well, which the attackers, for them to have some rangers, very, very useful indeed. Hobbit Slingers are here. The Warns of the North engaging the Lothlorien archers. Perhaps the Lothlorien archers going for a bit of an assassination on the Arthedain general. Where is the Arthedain general? Did he die already? No, there he is. In his red cape, the King of Arthedain, fighting alongside the hobbits, who, needless to say, those straw hats are not going to do you a lot of good when a big old elven curved sword is bearing down on your skull. Meanwhile, what's left of Lothlorien over here, I think all of Umbar, the entire Umbar in defence that was over by this gate, has perished at this point, but a mountain of corpses, mostly from the orcs as well. This announcer is starting to annoy me a lot. He does not know when to shut up. Dunedain Captain's victory seems certain, so finally it looks as though Cardland and the Misty Mountains, their combined forces, this is where I think the attackers have had the most joy. I think Cardland and the Misty Mountains will have the most men left when it comes to trying to take on the final stand. They have Darbad Warhammers, they still have some crossbows. Both the Misty Mountains and Cardland have got some crossbows, and even when they're out of ammunition, the Cardland crossbows will be decent in melee. That AP will come in handy against both Umbar and Dol Amroth. Sindar archers still fighting hard, however, getting some support from the Tirithea marksmen. And here come the Drake Broodlings. This should be the end. With their mass and with the amount of damage they can do in a short space of time, you would imagine this is probably going to be the end for this defensive position at this stage. The Miniscarith and Spearmen have also pushed all the way up to this position here. It's a shame, because if those Spearmen weren't in place, I'm sure those Haven Knights would move in for an assassination on the Royal Court of House Thorondor. There's still a single unit of Blackwatch Legion, sort of biding their time, could come in very, very handy when it comes to trying to take the town centre, so a good move ultimately. Some routing Belfalas Marines. Yeah, I feel as though sending in the Sindar archers were a little bit gung-ho. They would have been a very nice addition to the last stand defence, with those 2 swords they wield. But as it is, they're just getting pelted by javelins, rear charged by lancers, munched on by the Drake Broodlings. What is this? I think it's just a routing unit. Nope, it's the Haven Knights. I don't know how the Haven Knights are going to be used. I mean, if I were the Haven Knights, there would be a case of me sort of getting into the corner of the map somewhere and getting ready to rear charge the attackers as they blob up on the bridges, rather than going back to the town centre. I feel as though that just bottles them up and makes them not all that useful. Especially seeing as they would be the target of a lot of skirmishers. I mean, maybe not the Hobbit Slingers, they won't do a lot of damage to something as durable as the Haven Knights. Lothlorien archers here have actually stood up pretty well to the Wardens of the North, but ultimately the quality of the Wardens should see them over the line, although the King of Arthedain here is just getting sliced and diced by those 2 Elven archers. Dunedain Rangers using a lot of their ammunition here, though. Ranger ammunition could be just the ticket for winning this game for the attackers. The Grey Company will still have some, though, so maybe Arthedain feels as though they have the ammunition to deal with this. The Haven Knights here charging into the Temple Guard. Now, the Temple Guard will give as good as they get in melee, so the Haven Knights absolutely need to cycle in and out of here. Even a unit as tanky as the mighty Haven Knights will not enjoy being in melee with a unit like the Temple Guard. Cavalry is much better used cycling in and out, even melee cavalry like this. But elsewhere you can see that in the south the attackers have been largely successful. The Royal Court of House Thorondor able to get some nice rear charges, so a rare example perhaps of the merits of bringing a unit of lancers. Very depleted Angmar Marauders and Blackwatch Legion coming forward. M1's army very depleted at this stage, of course. And the rest of the Cardland and Misty Mountains forces also pushing inside the settlement. So what's going on down here? Yeah, the Haven Knights just stayed in melee. This is not what you want to be doing with them. Even though they are melee cavalry, you do not want to just be hanging around in melee, because cavalry just doesn't have the numbers to stand up to infantry for the most part, and also, especially a unit as deadly as the Temple Guard, I'm actually a little bit surprised that the Drake Broodlings retreated from that fight, because he is cycle charging now, is Ending Flame, and that could be enough to have the desired effects. Based on the fact they still had their bows out when they were marching, the Temple Guard still have ammunition. Taking away those AP arrows could be a very fine catch for the Haven Knights. A lesser unit of cavalry would also have died in there, it's worth saying. A lot of them did, but the Haven Knights and their durability managing to see them over the line. Just 9 Wardens of the North remaining. Trying to finally finish off what's left of the Lothlorien forces over here, so we're more or less the halfway point actually. And we can see that the vast majority of killing has already happened. The defenders slightly behind, but it is also worth saying in this case, with the quality they still have, I don't know, I feel as though the defenders could still pull this out. Karos Galadhon's Guardians, very, very effective. Castamir's Legion, Haven Guard are still back there as well. We'll see. I mean, the numbers are still very much in favour of the attackers here. There's also some Dunedain Rangers here from Cardland. They have their swords out, so we'll see if they still have ammo when they get closer. The attackers do still have archers that have ammunition, which could be the difference maker here. The fact they managed to ration their skirmish power a little bit. Some Minotaur Roman Guardians still with their crossbows out as well. That could be absolutely vital. But I think Lothlorien units breaking. I think that's just about it. Yes, it is. So we will be making here a little cut, I think, because I don't think any of these units are actually going to be able to get away. Temple Guard Yeah, so it will be a little cut as the attackers begin to move into position and get ready to make an assault on the central island and the town centre. A little bit of an outer skirmish going on here as the Haven Knights once again sally out to try and take out some potentially deadly targets, and the Snaga, they may not be the highest quality of javelins, but they can certainly cause a problem, especially seeing as the defenders are going to be very reliant on their Karascaladon's Guardians, I think, to just hold the line and really grind the attackers down. The Royal Court of House Thorondor are here, but they were not eager to engage the Haven Knights in melee for very good reason, because the Haven Knights would butcher the Royal Court of House Thorondor in melee, but they did make the mistake of disengaging from the Snaga skirmishes just a little bit too long, and with guard mode on, of course, they can stand and shoot, which means that they're just going to throw their javelins at point blank into the Haven Knights, and without support this is going to be the death of them. But they have managed to add their own kill count a little bit there by carving into this unit of Snaga. So they are going to go down fighting here, the Haven Knights, of course. I think most people would call the Haven Knights their favourite unit in Dol Amroth for very good reason. They're obviously very nice looking. They've got a sort of Grey Warden aesthetic almost from Dragon Age, much like the Haven Guard on foot. But of course that sword and shield in melee cavalry, very, very efficient at that sort of thing. The Drake Broodlings are here. The Snaga skirmish is actually just slowly but surely dying off. I think the Royal Court of House Thorondor are going to move into the support of the Drake Broodlings now to try and finish off the Haven Guard, or Haven Knights I should say, once and for all. But they're going to go down fighting here, and that was a worthwhile sacrifice, because if they weren't going to sort of cycle out to the edge of the map, then this was the best they could hope for. And there they go, both of them dying at the same time with the same animation, and that is the end of them. Meanwhile, what's going on here? Razani Nadubawi, there's some Troll Drummers, which are just sort of out here killing off routing units, but they are in full range of some archers, which one unit of archers at least is shooting at them. The Troll Drummers could be a worthwhile unit to get rid of as well, purely because even with just one of them, they can act as that morale buffer. Without them, though, they could depend a little bit more perhaps on the enemy breaking. None of the attacking factions are really well known for their morale except Arthedain. Arthedain can hold their morale together pretty well. The Catapult is also ready. I personally would probably turn the Catapult around. I think Cardland, what's left of Angmar, a bit of the Misty Mountains as well, are going to be approaching from the south, and that represents the bigger surface area to hit. We'll see. I mean, this is definitely an ideal spot to use the Catapult, and I don't think the attackers have got their own Catapult alive. Or at the very least, I'm not sure if they still have ammo for it. They have been using it throughout the battlefield after all. Throughout the battle, not battlefield. There's still that Grey Company there. Could still be very, very useful. Is the Catapult down here? Yes, it is. So they do have that attacking Catapult. I wonder how much ammunition they have for it. That could prove to be very, very decisive as well. The defenders very much marooned on their island. Can't really move too far. The Catapult, just a couple of good hits from the Catapult will be enough to really shift the momentum of this fight pretty heftily in favour of what on earth were they doing there? The Royal Court of House Thorondor just wandering into the Lothlorien archers and being made to pay for it. They're fighting to the death now, so that's the end of the Cardland cavalry. To be fair, most of their usefulness had already been used up. Battlo trackers there. Lothlorien blades are still the Haven Guard. The Nimrodel Rangers looks like they still have ammunition. They still have their bows out. Sword Masters. Yeah, it's a very elite force here, but the problem is it is very reliant on quality. So just a few errant catapult shots will be enough, I think, to do the business. Not only that, but they still have the Grey Company as well. If the attackers play their cards right, they should go on to win this. Body-piercing projectiles, siege weaponry. Missing all of those shots on the Gwathlo trackers. And now the lower tier Cardland archer is going to be here, and they're going to be able to try and do some damage, trying to kill off that catapult crew. Forward come the Lothlorien archers. In response, of course, the Gwathlo trackers will very, very quickly find themselves on the wrong end of that engagement, and that was a nice hit. Already shaken, a large amount of their manpower gone, and the Lothlorien archers should break them on contact. This is how the attackers are going to approach it, it looks like, by using their skirmishers, layering their skirmishers even. Heavy Goblin archers actually taking a bit of damage themselves right along that line. Victory seems certain. I'm not sure I believe that for a second. The Gwathlo trackers pulling out their hand axes in melee, but the Elven curved blades are going to be far too strong for them. Blackwatch Legion there in the background. Very minimal casualties. I mean, it could have been a lot worse here for the attackers. And I would have saved the catapult ammunition, honestly. I would have saved it for when the attackers were coming forward with much more of their infantry. As it is, these have been mostly wasted shots other than the direct hit on the Gwathlo trackers. And even then, it's not really the most pressing unit that you have to kill off. Victory seems certain, of course, now. The fight very much going in the favour of the Lothlorien archers. I do like the Lothlorien style as well. I do like the fact they've got their blue capes now, rather than the green that the Sylvan Elves used to have in vanilla. The Niscarithan sharpshooters moving forward. They still have ammunition, actually, so... Well, looks like the Lothlorien catapult is turning around, but once again, wasteful, I think. Too wasteful. I mean, they're going after the Nazgul, but the Nazgul is such a small unit. I mean, if you hit them directly, you can kill pretty much all of them in one shot, but the chance of you actually being able to do that are very, very limited. Galathrym Nobles, I think they're probably going to go after the Miniscarithan sharpshooters. Lothlorien blades are there, the Nimrodel Rangers are reloading as well. Rangers body piercing always causes the game to have a heart attack, but the attack is now getting underway, to be fair. The attacks aren't wasting as much time as I thought they would. Well, I say wasting as much time. They aren't being as conservative as I thought they would with all of the skirmishes they still have alive. I can't imagine this attack is really going to yield much in the way of results. I mean, the sharpshooters are trying to kill off some Haven Guard, which is fair enough, but they're probably just going to get focused down by the Galathrym Nobles and the Nimrodel Rangers. Meanwhile, this could be as much as I've been harping on about the defenders wasting their catapult ammunition, this could be a huge waste from Arthedain. The Grey Company body-piercing projectiles here could be exactly the sort of thing they need to win this fight. And they are being thrown under the bus here. Lothlorien Swordmasters as well, so it's not even just Lothlorien Archers, it's the Swordmasters. They're going to be able to absolutely butcher the Grey Company in melee, and so it's turning out to be an absolutely tragic waste here. Arthedain are starting to move in as well. I mean, it's not the end of the world. They do still have crossbows they can use and archers, the attackers, but the Grey Company were one of the main tools they could use. Get into position when there's a nice blob going on, and they could have won the attackers the game, but now they are going to die off. Lothlorien going to be able to kill them, so I'm not really sure. That might actually be an even worse waste than the catapult so far, but that was a very nice catapult hit, doing a huge amount of damage there. The heavy goblin spears, a little bit of friendly fire there, but the Grey Company, a shadow of their former selves, and they're also just being focused down now. The longer they stay in range, they should have been used far more sparingly than that. Rangers and mounted rangers both. Very, very fragile. Meanwhile, what's going on here? The Lothlorien archers, broken and fighting to the death, got a little bit too greedy, flew a little bit too close to the sun, and charged right into the bulk of reinforcements. The Cardland and Misty Mountains armies ready to start shooting. The Dunedain Rangers are here. The heavy goblin archers, simply too much for a single unit of Lothlorien archers to do. But they held down the front line pretty well, so that first engagement did go in favour of the defenders. Let's see what's going on over here. Another volley from the catapult. Another decent hit as well. Decent volley. Mostly, heavy goblin spears and Evandim archers. Maybe not the most important targets, but it's good hits. Getting a lot of kills all at once, which is exactly what you want to see from a catapult. And the defenders need to try and even out the numbers discrepancy somehow here. Oof, there goes the Arthedain General. Walking across the bridge there. Right in front of the Naru Naaru Royal Guard, and they oblige by simply shooting him dead. The Grey Company wandering headlong into the Karas Galadhon's Guardians, and with the only support they have being very depleted Wards of the North and Evandim Archers, this front line is going to have absolutely no problem holding the line. Meanwhile, once again, they're trying to cause the attackers to blob up on very depleted units here. Lothlorien Swordmasters, that's going to cause a lot of these Cardland crossbows actually to retreat. And now, those Lothlorien Swordmasters, which looked as though they were going to get overwhelmed, should be able to defeat these Miniscarithan Spearmen 1-1. We'll see how that goes. Arrow fire still flying back and forth, although mainly from the defenders to the attackers at this point, as they try and reposition themselves to try and make it so they're not taking quite such grievous losses. The catapult once again firing through. A nice hit there on the Dunedain captains. Oof, that's a That's a grievous loss. A lot of those Dunedain captains there dying, and that's one of the more quality-centric units that the attackers still have left. Certainly can go toe-to-toe with the Haven Guard. They'd lose 1-1, but it wouldn't be 1-1. The attackers have got a huge numbers advantage. And you can see here, the Castamir's Legion actually getting a little bit overextended. What they really want is the support of those Karas Galadhon's Guardians, and it looks as though Lothlorien are going to move forward to help them out. Because this joint Mordor-Arthedain venture in the north is not going very well. Umbar and Lothlorien managing to hold the line very, very nicely. Heavy Goblin Spears there in place. Hobbit Slingers starting to move forward. Hobbit Slingers are good over a long period of time, but they don't do the same level of damage, obviously, as Javelins or Axe Throwers quickly, which is one of the main selling points behind Javelins and Axe Throwers, the fact they can do such a high level of damage so quickly. The Iron Guard have now sort of shifted their focus over here. Here come the Miniska Rithlin Spearmen. Minotaur Romen Guardians are here on the front line now. Lothlorien Swordmasters are now coming back, but I don't know if they're going to make it. Going to be last samurai'd here by the Cardland crossbows. It looks as though actually those spearmen are going to block their advance as well. Spearmen doing their duty for their king. Heavy Goblin Archers are still here. I mean, to be fair, a lot of Cardland strength is bound up in their skirmishers. If they don't use them well, it could be a pretty grim old time for the attackers, but that's why I think this battle is still got a fair amount of time left. The fact that the attackers have to be a bit more careful. I mean, in the north they were wasteful. That Grey Company could have been so useful, so useful. Instead, here it is, still technically alive, but that won't be the case. Yep, there they go. Karas Galadhon's Guardians, the strongest unit of single pikes in the game. And now the Hobbit Slingers, as soon as they got into contact with Castamir's Legion in melee, they immediately break, of course. Another target destroyed. The Heavy Goblin Spears just in behind them, and there really isn't much left other than that. I mean, there's Nazgul and Temple Guard, but the Nazgul, they're at their most effective when they're fighting with something else. Now they're basically all alone, and alone they aren't going to be able to make much progress against this front line. Here though, now the attacking catapult is in play, and they managed to destroy one of the defending catapults. And unfortunately I think the viaduct there, or aqueduct I should say, I think that's actually working in favour of the attackers here, because they're able to sort of position their catapult right behind it, use it as a bit of cover. And I think they need to move the Galathrim Nobles, because any shots that don't hit the catapults are going to hit the Galathrim Nobles. Forward come the attackers now though. I don't think this attack is going to go too well. I mean, they're pouring forward, but they need to come forward with all of their might if they're going to make this attack stick. But the Minotaur Roman Guardians and the Miniska Rithlin Sharpshooters, I think this is a hideous mistake here from the Cardland player. I don't think he's going to make this attack stick at all. With the Lothlorien reinforcements on hand, the Haven Guard ready to throw themselves in the way as well, I don't think they're going to be able to call this a victory.
Curses! Our men no longer command the city.
I mean, this catapult is doing work. It's getting a lot of kills on the Galathrim Nobles, and in return, that aqueduct is getting in the way of the return shots. Meanwhile, these Heavy Goblin Spears are just hideously outclassed. Castamir's Legion and Karas Galadhon's Guardians is such an effective front line. Not a law-friendly front line, but an effective one nonetheless. The Temple Guard trying to use their AP arrows, but there goes another one of the defending catapults. The announcer, meanwhile, is going crazy. The Miniska Rithlin Sharpshooters and Dunedain Rangers, I'm not really sure what Cardland were hoping to achieve here. Even if they did manage to take the town centre, it would immediately flip back in favour of the defenders. The other unit of Haven Guard is over here as well. Tharbad Warhammers are coming forward, so this is it. I mean, Cardland have gone all in, and unfortunately he left his ally a little bit flat-footed. The Misty Mountains were not prepared to come forward and help as quickly as perhaps they could have been. The Drake Broodlings are coming forward. I mean, if this attack fails, the defenders win, and it has not started well, because Cardland's forces they're too stretched out, and they're just being butchered on the way through, especially by the Lothlorien force. I mean, look at these pikes and infantrymen. And as soon as they do get to the town centre, their reward is a battle with the Haven Guard, so...
We are blessed.
Yeah, and there goes the Cardland General.
Is dead. We have sent the idiot to hell.
He has been defeated. I mean, to be fair, they did manage to make it to the town centre, but that isn't going to be enough to save them. The Drake Broodlings right in and amongst things over here, but they are having to face off against Galathrun nobles and Narun Royal Guard in melee. And over time, the Drake Broodlings, they can cause a lot of damage, but I just don't think they're going to have enough left in the tank. They're going to try and get a rear charge here, but the pikes will just turn around and skewer them. There's some Nimrodel Rangers here. The Galathrun nobles, the melee powerhouses that they are, just moving forwards, hounding the Drake Broodlings. Yeah, I think the defenders have got this. I think that was the key engagement here. And well, you can see the Nazgul and the Temple Guard being chased down by the Castamir's Legion, but the Nazgul could still beat a unit of depleted Castamir's Legion, I think, without the support of these pikes. So, with the pikes turning around to try and trap the Drake Broodlings, the Castamir's Legion are going to do the same. I really don't know where the announcer is getting this from. I think the quality of the defenders, unless like the Orcs, the Misty Mountains have got like a secret hidden army that they're going to pull out of nowhere. I mean, Blackwatch Legion, they do still have crossbows. The crossbows could be used to pretty good effect from the Misty Mountains here. Oh, there goes the Elven General. I mean, the Cardland have managed to... Cardland's forces do not need this amount of men on them now. They need reinforcements on the front line to deal with the Misty Mountains, so maybe Cardland's suicidal charge could be just what the Misty Mountains need, because there's no way that a unit of Haven Guard and Lothlorien Spears are needed now to defeat the dregs of Cardland's army. Because these troops are going to be needed to throw off this assault over here, the Blackback Mountain Berserkers falling back, because at this point, it's all down to the Misty Mountain skirmishers. There's no other way that the attackers win this. Narun Royal Guard moving forward. Temple Guard are here, the Nazgul are here, but I mean at this point they're annoyances at best. Honestly, I don't feel as though the defenders rather need to send this amount of troops over to even deal with them. I feel as though you can sort of coax them forward and fully go after the Misty Mountains, because if you stop the Misty Mountains crossbows, you win this fight. There's no other way they win. And unfortunately, I think that they're falling into the trap of not committing on the Misty Mountains. Instead, they're feeding kills into them, because this Lothlorien Blade unit is just going to get slaughtered by the Blackback Mountain Berserkers, especially considering the amount of damage that's already been done to the Lothlorien Blades. There goes the Catapult as well. I've realised that the Catapult is a problem, but I mean it's choose the method of your demise at this point. The Blackwatch Legion is still here, forming a bit of a backstop. There's still over 10,000 frames left, which tells me that the defenders are going to be content to just sort of sit here and try and absorb the damage, but I don't know if absorbing the damage is going to be the right way to go about things. I mean, the Galathrun nobles are still shooting, so they do still have at least some range damage they can do. Here come the Karas Galadon's Guardians, taking a bit of damage, I think, from Snaga that are in there. There is Azog with his Blackback Mountain Berserkers. There's some Heavy Goblin Halberdiers in there as well. The crossbows having to arc their shots a little bit, but it's the Catapult. At this close range, I think it'll be the Catapult which does the bulk of the killing. But the elves tackling the goblins head on. More and more reinforcements, so it's almost as if they heard me, because they are going to commit fully onto the Misty Mountains, and not a huge amount of damage. It could have been far worse. I mean, it really is a question of whether that Catapult can get a telling hit. If it does, it might be curtains for the defenders. If it can't, however, the attackers might be in real trouble, because they're going to need something to engage this force in melee. The Blackback Berserkers will not hold the line all on their lonesome. Very elite pikes, backed up by elite line infantry from both Lothlorien and Umbar. There's still those Haven Guard to consider as well, 47 strong. The Galathrun nobles, coaxing the Nazgul and the Temple Guard into range. And the Nazgul, I mean, 7 of them. At this point, I mean, you need something substantial to stop the Nazgul. These pikes could be just what was called for, however, but I think the Haven Guard need to get over there as well, I think. And now you can see that moving forward, the Blackwatch Legion getting in the way. It might be that that Catapult just ran out of ammunition, which might be a real godsend for the defenders. This is what the Blackwatch Legion are all about. They've disrupted that pike formation, and now they need reinforcements. Will the Haven Guard get in there? The Dol Amroth player is dragging his heels here, and it could cost his team the match. Maybe he crashed, I don't know. I'm sure that we'll find out in the comments below. The Nazgul, however, victory seems certain. Not a substantial enough force to deal with them. The Galadhrim nobles usually are so strong, but against the Nazgul, especially with how depleted they were, bad decision making could be what cost the defenders here, because they had the tools. But I feel as though the decision making here has not been as strong as it needed to be, and they may have thrown this away. Forward come the Karas Galadhon's Guardians. Again, another unit of pikes on this front line, but I feel as though the damage has already been done here. The Blackwatch Legion in conjunction with the Blackback Berserkers doing a lot of damage, doing what they need to. Balance of forces is evenly matched, perhaps with another application of these pikes. That can go back in the other direction. Yeah, the Dol Amroth player must have crashed, surely. Because there's no way he would just be sitting here doing nothing. That's a real shame, but it could be what also causes the defenders to lose this match. Well, there goes the Angmar General. In combat with the Blackback Berserkers and Azog. The Galadhrim nobles actually deciding to not go for the Nazgul and instead trying to kill off what's left of the AP Temple Guard. Regardless, though, they are still going to fall by the wayside, I think. And I think the attackers are going to win this now. I think the decisive blow has been struck. With the Dol Amroth player either in action or the fact that he crashed, and also the fact that that push from the Blackwatch Legion really crippled the defenders on this side. The fact that they didn't send the right unit to deal with the Nazgul. All of these things have added up, I think, to give the attackers the win here. 10,000 frames left and the defenders still down by 2%. I mean, it is going to come down to whether, because ultimately those Haven Guard are still in the town centre, they do still need to be dealt with. Will the attackers, when all is said and done, have what it takes to kill them? I mean, if the Haven Guard are just going to be static and they still have crossbow ammunition, they could just shoot them to death. Which would be an unfortunate way for this battle to end, but we're going to go to ×2 speed here as we... Nope. Dol Amroth are now moving. That has all the hallmarks of being AFK at the most inopportune time possible. The Nazgul trying to stop the Nimrod Rangers as they move to get the Temple Guard. The Haven Guard are going to move in. The Haven Guard could come down here, but I just think at this point, too little too late. Was the Dol Amroth player AFK would be my question. If he was, then I hope whatever he was doing was important, because it may have cost his team the game here. Unless the Haven Guard have got enough might to win this fight for their team, but I don't know. Well, the Nimrod Rangers shanking the Mordor General. To be fair, I mean, those Nimrod Rangers are going to charge off and try and kill the last remaining Temple Guardsmen off. The Nazgul, if they fall for this bait, if they go after the Nimrod Rangers instead of recharging this position over here and helping the Misty Mountains, again, that could be another decision which turns this fight around again. You can see that this has given the impetus to the Haven Guard to charge into melee to support the Lothlorien pikemen. It really is down to these two elite units now. Do they have enough left in the tank to win this fight for the defenders? I personally don't think they do. Like, it's a lot to get through. Another unit of halberds is sort of slow walking into position. I mean, it's possible.
Our army is tiring.
What a very weird, topsy-turvy sort of match this is. Because everything in behind those Blackback Berserkers, to be fair, is not great. I mean, Heavy Goblin Halberds and Minisker Rithlin Spearmen are the only other two melee units they have. The rest are crossbows and archers, which could be bad tidings. One player has admitted defeat. I don't know who that may be. Here are the Nimrod Rangers. Defeat is a distinct possibility here. If the Nimrod Rangers had continued to try and kite the Nazgul, that could have been exactly what the defenders needed. And it looks as though that's what they're going to try and do again. They're going to get out of melee with the Nazgul, which is exactly what they should do. Not only to try and kill the Temple Guard off, well, they routed, which is unfortunate. They themselves baited the Nazgul away, but then they took the bait of going into melee with the Nazgul. It's like a comedy of errors. The Nimrodel Rangers are gone.
Praise to our Lord.
There goes Azor.
Our men have slain the enemy general.
But at this point,
Now his men will lose heart.
the Nazgul are free to walk into the town centre and capture it. Which means one of these two defending units, which is doing the business over here, needs to turn around and deal with them, and you would have to say it will probably end up being the Haven Guard. But you can see that with the Blackback Berserkers mostly defeated, the bloodbath and slaughter can commence, as the Misty Mountains... none of their other units are going to be a match for this. They are going to be destroyed en masse. And the Haven Guard are going to turn around, and they are going to go after the Nazgul. 6 of them remain. And unfortunately, the Haven Guard are going to have to go after the one Temple Guardsman. Nazgul, I thought they were going to go after the rear of these Lothlorien pikes, but it doesn't look as though they are. The depleted unit of pikemen might be going after the depleted Nazgul. Has this fight just turned around once again? This has been a very, very strange match so far. I'm not sure the Misty Mountains player may have crashed.
Praise the saints. Our men have taken control of the city.
Well, the Lothlorien spears are back here. This one Temple Guardsman is surely going to be skewered by these spearmen. And then a combination of the depleted pikes and the Haven Guard should be enough to finish off the Nazgul, and then there's nothing left in melee which can stand before the Haven Guard and Karas Galadhon's Guardians combined, so the defenders might go on to win this once again. And it might be a question of quality once more. I mean, these Karas Galadhon's Guardians need to support the Haven Guard pretty badly. But they are going to get it. We'll see if it's enough. With how much... I mean, they're just slaughtering their way through those depleted Karas Galadhon's Guardians. I mean, I would expect with the numbers of the Haven Guard it should be enough. The Haven Guard are no slouches after all. Imrahil is in there. But look at this unit of Elven Pikes just pushing back against the Horde. Still a few units from Umbar in there as well. Very, very depleted, of course, but still doing the business. And the Nazgul, there's still 6 of them. Victory still seems certain. What happened to those Elven Spears? It's all hands on deck to try and kill off the Nazgul now. There they are, Lothlorien Spears, 4 of them remain. Victory seems certain, but I can't help but feel as though just being overwhelmed by this amount of Haven Guard is going to be too much for them to handle.
The enemy flees the battle. Run down those worthless peasants.
It's rather fitting for Cardlin, because Cardlin have been defeated. The Miniscarithlan Spearmen just mown down by the Karas Galadhon's Guardians as they continue in pike formation to just push back against all of these skirmishers, which are virtually defenceless at this point. And yeah, I don't feel as though the Nazgul are going to take losses over here. I mean, it is all down to the Nazgul at this point. There's still 6 of them remaining, so none of them have actually died. I mean, I would expect the Haven Guard, with the support from the elves that they have, to be able to win this. Or at the very least do enough damage to the Nazgul to the point where winning over here is not possible. I would say there's a real case for sending these 4 Naru and Iron Raw Guard out to help against the Nazgul, because everything pretty much hinges on killing the Nazgul before they're able to get into the rear of these pikes as they continue to push through, because these units are doomed against these pikemen.
The fortune of battle goes our way. Let's pray it remains as such.
There's still 6 Nazgul remaining, and the Haven Guard slowly but surely are falling. Can the Nazgul be stopped? Yeah, the Haven Guard, they are taking losses. They need to start killing off these unit models quickly. And these pikemen just sort of reshifting into position perhaps to try and cause these heavy goblin archers to break. I mean, at this point though, I would say that all of these goblin forces are more likely to break off beforehand, which means these pikes will be able to face the Nazgul from the front at the very least.
In our favor. If we remain true and wholehearted, victory will be ours.
Still 6 of them. Still 4 Lothlorien Spears, 32 Haven Guard. They're still taking losses. Most of the kills have been on the Karas Galadhon's Guardians though. They started off with I think 15. Down to just 4. 5 Nazgul. 1 has finally fallen. And that might be the first domino that falls. And even if it's not this other unit of Karas Gladhon's Guardians I think would be a step too far for the Nazgul, even if they do manage to somehow scrounge a victory out from over there. And this one unit of Karas Gladhon's Guardians has pushed back this assault. Very, very powerful unit, of course, and they have certainly proved that today, and it's going to be an exceedingly close fight. I think the closest fight on the Grey Havens that I've ever shown. Heavy Goblin Archers shaken and tired, and they are almost certainly going to fall away, as well as the Catapult crew. Catapult crew obviously garbage in melee. Over here, how goes the Nazgul struggle? I think there's only 3 left. Yep, so the Haven Guard are going to be victorious, and the defenders are going to be victorious. I thought they'd thrown it away. I really did. I thought for a horrible second that they had all the tools but weren't able to get over the line. But in the end, it was the attackers who just ran out of steam. Those Blackback Berserkers, as soon as they fell apart on the front line, was all over. And I think it all stems from that very reckless Cardinal charge forward. If they had those Tharbad Warhammers and Dunedain Captains helping to hold down the front line alongside the Blackback Berserkers, there's no way the defenders would have been able to do what they've done here. But in the end, that critical moment went the way of the defenders. I think over here the Nazgul might very well be the first to fall. Well, there's still 3 of them. 29 Haven Guard. Imrahil is going to live to fight another day. Haldir isn't. Nor is the Umbar General, Castamere.
It is unwise to praise the day before sunset, but our men are winning the battle and forging a worthy victory.
Yeah, a worthy victory, and the announcer was not feeling confident all throughout this fight, and in the end, they are going to achieve victory, and a lot of it comes down to their elites they had in the town centre. And the Karas Gladhon's Guardians in particular, I think, can count themselves as being MVPs. I'm sure that we'll look at the kills at the end, and the Rangers from all 3 of the defensive factions would have ungodly amounts of kills. Nazgul continuing to fight, and I think that is the end of the Misty Mountains. So the Nazgul are going to be the last ones to fight in melee. There are units over here, I think, which are still technically alive and on the field. Yeah, there's some Illuminous Gate Guards. And there's also some pikemen, so I would assume Arthedain crashed. Very interesting sort of dynamics between the players that went on here. I'm sure that there's got to be some players that crashed. But well played to the defenders nonetheless. I thought they'd thrown it away at the end by their choices, but the Rangers getting in ideal positions, the right choice of elite units. Good teamwork as well. I think Lothlorien, Umbar and Dol Amroth took half of the settlement each, and then Lothlorien supported both of them with appropriate units. And that works. You know, dividing the workload like that certainly works. And here the Nazgul proving once again what a powerhouse they can be, and this is when they're at their least effective, when they're essentially being overwhelmed by elite units. If they had gone in with some support, again, that could also have been the sort of thing which won the attackers the battle. Umbar, I think, have been pretty much killed to the last man. I think there's still some Narina Royal Guard running around somewhere. Yep, they're over there. 1 Castamir's Legion, they're going to go after the Illuminous Gate Guards. So Umbar on their last legs, Dol Amroth and Lothlorien. It's not exactly the armies they started off with, but looking a little bit healthier nonetheless. And there go the Nazgul. So now it's just a case of chasing down the remaining Arthedain troops, so we'll just fast forward through this because it's not really terribly relevant to the results of the battle. Maybe those depleted Arthedain pikes could also have been the sort of thing which made the difference. Who knows? 1 player admits defeat. I don't know, personally. Like, I feel as though it has a way of balancing itself out, I suppose. Come the Haven Guard, killing off those Illuminous Gate Guards, supporting Umbar, Dol Amroth and Umbar, the best of enemies, in this case the best of friends. And then the final unit, very, yeah, I mean 13 Arthedain pikemen, perhaps not. Like, pike like that, you need to be in pretty substantial numbers to have a huge impact. I mean, it is fine margins, but they would have had to fight off against Haven Guard and Karas Gladhon's Guardians, which as you can see from that engagement, doesn't go well.
By the victory we have won here today.
So yeah, good spread of kills here between the defenders. Dol Amroth getting just below Umbar, and then the elves getting the most, which doesn't surprise me. They had Sylvan Rangers, and those pikes at the end also got a lot of kills on lower tier units. Arthedain getting the most kills of the attackers, again perhaps not the most surprising. They were reasonably active, and they also did a decent job on their gate, but they also were one of the first to fall during the final push. Let's have a look and see what got the kills for Umbar. I would be very interested to see. Yep, Castamir's Rangers getting nearly 700 kills. I would imagine that that's similar stats that you would see for the Sylvan Rangers and the Nimrodale Rangers as well. Over 200 on Naren Irie Sentinels. 3 units of these elite Umbar pikes of varying fortunes. I think that the unit that got 246 was the one that was on the front line against Mordor, because that seemed to be a very fruitful engagement, even if I couldn't watch it without the game crashing. Both units of crossbows getting over 200 kills as well. That's a good return. It shows that they were well used. And down here, a lot of units getting over 100, as you would expect as well, based on the amount of numbers they were faced with. Only a few getting under 100, 52, 45 on a unit of another unit of Naren Irie Sentinels. But yeah, big thank you to the Steward of Dale for sending this one to me. This one was sent to me sort of in late March, so it was about a month ago that I was given this. But like I say, I like to spread out seeing the maps as much as I possibly can. But yeah, the Grey Havens is always a fun one to watch, because it's always long, it's always big and sort of epic in terms of scale. So epic, in fact, that the game struggles to handle it when big blobs form and those rangers start firing into them. But that's something that's unavoidable, unfortunately. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this. I'm not really sure what I can give in terms of a concrete schedule moving forward, because I'm sort of at the sharp end of my university project. So sort of that will have maybe some sort of an impact. It will, here and there might be the odd missing video, but it shouldn't be too bad. And also by sort of mid-May, I'll be done with all the work that I need to do. So then normal service can be resumed, and in fact it will be summer break, or what's intended to be summer break, as I sort of move on to try and do a master's. So summer break hopefully will be when I can start to produce videos to an even greater extent. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot that can change quite quickly, so I don't want to make any concrete plans or sort of committals. But even so, for the time being, there might be the odd dropped video, but it shouldn't be too bad. One video every 3 days, perhaps, for the next 2 weeks instead of one video every 2. That sort of thing. I don't know. We'll see how the workload carries. If things go well, I might not even have to drop any videos at all. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.